Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today, once again, I'm delighted to be joined by JP Mason and Declan McConville for the Thursday Bulletin. Gentlemen, last night, cracking result, very impressive performance in parts. Let's strip it back. Let's talk through that. How did you enjoy it, JP?
Absolutely loved it. So good to be coming on here with a positive Celtic state of mind, as opposed to the disaster of last season and the many sort of dull moments and depressing moments after games, and also the fact that I was there and saw it in the flesh and was able to see the effort and the desire that was put in by every single player in a Celtic jersey, and no more so than Anthony Ralston. I don't think. I mean, yeah, okay, I've been critical of him, but I don't think I've been like, get him out, or, he's not good enough, to be in the squad. I just didn't think he would be good enough to actually start games. And last night, it was the best man in the park by a country mile. I know there's a lot of people saying Welsh played well. I thought he did as well. And obviously Rogic had his slippers on. But I just thought Ralston, epitomised what has changed under Postecoglou, and it's probably a mixture of the player and the coach, I think. But last night there was a moment where he sprinted right down the halfway line, won a corner, and he kind of just swaggered off. And Sean behind me said, "Oh, look at that swagger!" And I just grabbed him and I went, "He's got every right to that swagger." So,
Listen, I'm glad you brought him up, because my plan was to actually run through each of the performers last night. And through that, we can maybe get a sense of how this team is developing. I mean, I put up on the headline the Kyogo phenomenon, because he is a phenomenon. Declan, we will go through the entire team, but give me a wee overview of your night last night. How did you enjoy that? And can you see, like JP, something is developing here under Ange Postecoglou?
Absolutely. The hunger, desire, determination in that Celtic team is really, really apparent. They get Celtic fans off their feet. I thought the atmosphere inside Celtic Park last night was electric. Everybody just seemed right up for it, and the team looked right up for it, and you can tell that they're given 100% for the gaffer, and he's getting that out of them. And, last night, to touch on Joe Hart sprinting away over to the manager, showing his bit of leadership and experience to get Callum McGregor over, the captain, just calm things down and settle at the back, and we changed our approach to that last 10 minutes. And that's something that I think we've really been missing, is that vocal goalkeeper who you can even hear at times sitting in the stands shouting and bawling at his two centre-halves, which again will only help a young lad like Stephen Welsh, who I thought was immense last night. Again, Tony Ralston, he's not 25, 26, Tony Ralston, he's still fairly young in that sense, was immense. Yeah, there's definitely something happening there, and it's incredible the turnaround from what we were watching only a matter of months ago. I don't think any Celtic fan could have envisaged the quickness of this, because we were all told that it would take time, that Postecoglou, when he comes into a club, it takes time. But I'm sure there's a lot of Japanese and Australian journalists today with big, smug, cheeky grins in their faces, and rightly so.
Well, someone has requested that I tweet the link to the edition that we did with Dan Orowitz, who came in from the Japan Times to talk about Ange Postecoglou. This was, of course, prior to the signing of Kyogo. And it would be interesting to look back at that. I've not watched it back, because such is the way in here, JP. You get one bulletin done, you're watching a game, you're back in the next day to do the next one, and it's very much moving forward. And people can go back and say, you got this wrong, you got that right, and that's understandable. I mean, if you're calling it on a day-to-day basis. But I don't think there was too much in the way of personal criticism for Tony Ralston. I think everybody was in agreement that we needed a right back. Of course we did. I mean, even now, when you look at what we have there, behind Tony Ralston, you've got Stephen Welsh, who can play at right back. I think he played a few of his games on loan at Morton at right back. You've got Urhoghide, who's not played a competitive game of football for Celtic yet. And you've got Leo Connor, again, who has come in as a young prospect, but it hasn't worked out for him at Celtic. So we kept saying we needed a right back. In terms of Tony Ralston, it's true what Deck says. He's 22 years of age, JP. Now, I've just had a very interesting discussion with my good friend Colin Watt, who is a contributor to ACSOM. And we go head to head on the right back situation, and I'm sure he'll talk about it when he's next on. I did think he played particularly well last night, but what is it about some people watching Celtic whereby even when Ralston performs well, there's an aye but, or when you say, well, actually, he's performing well enough, surely Steve, and this is what we said last night, surely Steve Clarke's got an eye on the performances of Anthony Ralston, and then people scoff at that. So there's still this kind of attitude towards, well, he's still not that great. He's just, he's playing above himself or he's punching above his weight. Does that stop? I mean, surely last night was the biggest test that he's had this season, JP, and he came through it with flying colours. I think there was one particular error that I noted, but over and above that, his performance, I thought, was the best he's ever played in a Celtic jersey. And there was a moment where, had it not been for his backtracking and his covering, where he intercepted that through ball, which was superb. They were right back in it. And that was down to Ralston with his anticipation and his work ethic and all of these things. And, I agree with you, JP. If he's got a wee bit of swagger about him now, I think he deserves to have it.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think maybe it's just because he didn't come into the team and do a Kieran Tierney straight away and just be that kind of guy that, is a first name in the team sheet and, was eating up tackles and doing all what he was doing, the similar sort of things to what Kieran Tierney was doing. So I think because he's gone away and he's been on loan at St Johnstone and Dundee United and not really had any real impact at those clubs, I mean, those clubs or fans of those clubs could maybe educate me otherwise, but as far as I know, he wasn't exactly, a standout performer for them. Might be wrong in that, I don't know. But I think maybe it's just because he's ticked past a few years. But then people do blossom in their football careers, late on, and sometimes, don't sort of come to the fore until mid-20s. There's probably many more recent examples, but one that I can remember is Ian Wright. He didn't actually, I don't know the actual age. I think he didn't start playing professional football at a decent level until he was like 23, 24 or something like that. He'd been in the lower leagues. So, it's come to the fore just now, and I'm so happy for the guy, because it must be so, the job satisfaction you must get as being a Celtic fan, a Celtic player, and coming off the park knowing that everybody in that ground is singing your praises. That's the best thing, probably one of the best feelings you could have.
I hope he can build on it. I mean, when the gaffer comes out and speaks about the incoming Josip Juranovic as being brought to the club to complement what's already there, then that should give him a boost as well. He's been in and about the first team now, under 5 managers, as we keep saying, Declan, over a period of 5 years, making his debut as a 17-year-old, similar to Kieran Tierney, who he came through the ranks with. But in those 5 years, 28 appearances for Celtic. So I look at that and I think to myself, how many young players would have stuck around? Now, the flip side to that might be, well, he was given a big contract by Rodgers. Rodgers came in and gave him I think it was a 4-year deal, wasn't it? Or a 3-year deal with a year's option, which we've taken up this year. So why would he leave if he's on decent wages, etc., etc.? But in terms of ambition for a young footballer, so many other players of his ilk, his contemporaries, guys he would have been playing youth football with, have gone. Because to play, 5 or make 5 appearances a season on average over a 5-year period, you would think that your career's stagnating. So the kind of credit he's getting, I think it's fully deserved. Declan, do you think he will ever shake off that the monkey off his back when it comes to getting stick, or people just waiting for him to make a mistake?
Well, I think, when Juranovic comes in, there'll be a lot of Celtic fans probably in the mindset just now that it's Ralston's jersey in position to lose at the moment, because he's not really put a foot wrong, in my opinion. So far, he's given you 100%, even at times. Maybe he's not at the best of games, but he's always there. He's always showing for the ball, always wanting to do something. Last night was, I would say probably his best performance in a Celtic jersey. He scored 2 league goals as well so far. So one of our top goal scorers in the team. So he's getting a goal. He's getting in about it. But it just depends, because it'll certainly, I think, now be the second choice to Juranovic. Whether he'll get game time again, that is the only worry, because as you say, Paul, he's 22, he's played very little football. In terms of your progress and your development, 28 games is not a lot. But last season, the guy that we brought in January, John Joe Kenny, to me, he'd probably been better playing Tony Ralston. And again, I've said in this podcast before, the game against Livingston at home, the draw, I thought he was one of the better players for us that day, but yet we persisted with the Everton loanee, who was awful. He was absolutely stinking. So, sitting last season, I might have got the bit between his teeth thinking, well, if that guy can play for Celtic, so can I. And I just think probably Ange Postecoglou deserves a lot of credit in this, because we've heard David Turnbull talking about his man management. Maybe he just needed that arm round the shoulder. He was getting a wee bit from Brendan Rodgers early on to just push him on a wee bit. And I hope he does push on a bit, because there's nothing more satisfying than as Celtic fans to see one of our own pulling on the green and white hoops.
Well, let's talk about that, because we've got Callum McGregor as the captain of the side last night, performing again. I think Kevin Graham called it a typical Callum McGregor performance, because sometimes, he's just at that level where he's so not predictable, but he's so consistent. And I think that, that's a good thing, to be predictable of JP, to have that level of consistency. So he's come through the ranks. James Forrest, the goal scorer, has come through the ranks. You've got Anthony Ralston in there as well. I mean, Montgomery came on, and I've always been impressed with Montgomery's performances. I think that he's never let anyone down. And of course, you've got Stephen Welsh. So it's good to see a core of the youth, albeit some of them are in there because we've not got anything else. I mean, it was a very kind of weak bench we had last night, JP. But we've already started speaking about Joe Hart. One point I would make on the John Joe Kenny one, though, Declan, I agreed with you there. I thought that against Livingston, Tony Ralston was the best player on the park. And by the way, we were pretty poor that day. But he just disappeared. He was dropped from the squad entirely. Celtic went out and bought John Joe Kenny. And I know that when you bring in loanees, there's often things tied into the deal that if you don't play them, you get charged. So you're actually getting charged while the player's not playing. Or if you've got X amount of fixtures, they expect their loanee to play a certain percentage of games, or there's a charge on the loan fee. Maybe John Kennedy's hands were tied. I don't know. But I did feel it was a bit unfair for him to come in and perform. I think that was his first game in the first team in 18 months, Declan. Played pretty well, drops off the face of the earth again. That's bad management. But we've already spoken about Joe Hart, JP, and in particular, that moment where he showed the leadership and he's ran over to Ange Postecoglou, and it's been picked up on. And he's not doing it to be contrived. He's doing it because he's identified that there's an issue here and we need to change our style a wee bit, maybe to see the game out in the last 10 minutes. Very, very impressed with that. But I was also impressed with his saves. I mean, a goalkeeper that's saving shots and things like that. I mean, we're being spoilt here, JP. And have we finally found that replacement for Fraser Forster? Has it happened? Is Joe Hart that man?
I don't think there's any question about that. And I have to hold my hands up. My opinion of Joe Hart was, I don't know, somebody that I just didn't really have much of an opinion of him, really. He just seemed a bit of a wido and, fancied his Barra,
A wido, I like that
term. He played for City, JP.
No, it's not just that. It's not just that. It just seemed a bit of a kind of, I don't know, maybe I had wrongly thought of him a bit of a spice boy.
Was there not a scene whilst they were at a tournament with England and it was him and Wilshere? I seem to remember.
And he said something, I can't remember even what he said.
And he's in a pool. Him and Jack Wilshere's in a pool and they're smoking and bevying and they're on tour. I'm pretty sure that happened as well. And then you've got the thing with the ball boy. So you create a perception in your mind of a particular player, don't you, at times?
Yeah, my mate Ian Shaw texted me yesterday and said he's like a guy that you went to school with who was in a few years above you and you always thought he was a bit of a, so-and-so. But then you meet him a few years after school and he's actually all right.
So basically it's Twitter then. It's basically Twitter, eh? We just make our minds up about people, and then in real life, it's completely different.
Well, Ian Shaw got that off Twitter, actually. It was somebody else that he'd read that, and he thought he'd made it up himself, and it turned out it was someone else's thoughts. But I think they're highly applicable to Joe Hart, because see the way he talks. I watched his interview last night when I got in, and you know, it was just bigging up Edouard coming on, and I thought Edouard did really well when he came on, and I was really, really pleased to see. Again, it's something you don't really. Maybe you do see it on the TV, I don't know. But when you're there and you see a player's body language as they're coming on, as they run onto the park, and their immediate impact in the game, and immediately Edouard was all about that game last night. There was no kind of, I'll take a few minutes to get into it. He just launched himself straight into the game. He was unlucky not to get a goal, and just looked really, really hungry, and looked like he was enjoying being on the park. You know, it was like a coiled spring when he came on, and so many times we've seen him come on and the body language just looked a bit loose, and he's just looked a bit kind of. I've said this before, and I said it last week. Maybe I don't subscribe to this idea that he's not trying, and that his head's at the door. I actually don't believe that. I just think he's maybe just not been firing all cylinders. I think hope. I mean, it's a big hope, but I mean, imagine if we got him to stay. I mean, it'd be unbelievable. I have no idea what's going on. As I said before, he's not said anything. His agent's not been in the press. He's not said anything about wanting to move. We just keep hearing him getting linked with these, no disrespect, mediocre English clubs, because Crystal Palace, Brighton, I mean, really, again, I know you're going to make loads of money, but I mean, it'd be absolutely weird as anything to go from that last night to playing for Crystal Palace at home and getting tonked probably by quite a lot of teams in that league. So,
yeah, it's difficult for me to comprehend, Declan. Probably the same for yourself. Why you would make that choice, but obviously it comes down to the pounds and the pence. They might also be looking at it like a stepping stone, so they go to a club of that ilk, hoping that should they impress, they can take a step up again. Very much like Virgil van Dijk, I guess, would be a good example of that. But see, when after the game, when Joe Hart's getting asked about individual performances, I think he was asked about Ralston and Welsh, for example, and he was keen to say, you know what, we are doing this together. I don't want to single anybody out. It's a team kind of effort here. Do you get a real sense of that, Declan, from watching the games that you've been able to go and watch in person, that there's a buy-in? Because last season it was so fragmented. You seen tiny wee glimmers of hope from time to time. I always use that, that 25 minutes at the San Siro where we go 2 goals up and you see Edouard bossing it and doing things that only Edouard can do in a Celtic jersey. And then it just falls to pieces because we don't have that same kind of work ethic or the same kind of like game management as we seem to have now. So when you're at the game and you're watching that, how big a part is Joe Hart in that happening? Because we've seen it in the first game under Ange Postecoglou. Everything seems to be going well, but then you're let down by the goalie. How pivotal is this going to be that Joe Hart has come in? And not only is he performing well, I mean, the 2 saves that he made, the one with his toe off the post, it's nothing each at that moment in time. 28 minutes, he makes a save that gets Starfelt out of jail. That could have gone the wrong way for Starfelt because I thought he came onto a decent game. So it shows you the influence that he's had in this team in such a short space of time, Dick.
Yeah, when James McCarthy and him came in, I spoke about the manager basically getting the spine of his team. I know McCarthy only came on as a sub last night, but if you get your goalkeeper right, and he is your man, then I think that just runs through the team freely, like Neil Lennon, Fraser Foster. Obviously, Craig Gordon was Brendan Rodgers' goalkeeper during his time at Celtic. If you get that position right, it runs through the team. And I think you've got a guy there who is believed to be 15 grand a week. So he came up here. He's got a desire to play football. Same goes for Kyogo Furuhashi, who's obviously came here from Japan, made that step, not like a lot of Japanese internationalists that have made that move to Europe and looked at Celtic. And there just seems to be a real hunger and desire for guys in our team to want to play football for a genuine love of the sport and the game. They're also doing that for a manager who you can just tell loves football, that they are really bought into, because you can just see that collectiveness together last night. You could see it right away from the start. Turnbull's pressing right away was excellent. He was pressing a game. Players are showing for the ball. They're always wanting the ball. At times last year, it looked as if it was a hot potato and nobody wanted to get it to their feet and they were looking away and whatever. But this just looks so much different. It is a collective spirit, and that is running through the team. And as I say, I think your goalkeeper's imperative to that, because if he's shouting and bawling and giving instructions and he's giving you that wee bit of confidence and belief, again, that goes for guys like Tony Ralston and Stephen Welsh, who are the younger guys in that defence. You just feel a wee bit more confidence, and that confidence, I think, is just spreading slowly but surely through that team. And it's a team that last year, its confidence was shot to pieces. You could see that at times. Even when we were going up in games, you thought, oh no, we're going to probably, concede here and this team could pull it back. That seems to have changed very quickly, and I think that's down to big characters getting brought in like Joe Hart.
Massively, Declan. Some great comments coming in. As I keep saying, we are streaming to various different platforms at the moment. If you are watching on YouTube, get subscribing. Some unbelievable prizes could be yours just by subscribing, free charge. Now, I'm moving into the left back position here, and it's probably the right time to bring in this point from David Bradley. Celtic, come on, give Ange the tools for the job. We mentioned this, I think it might have been on Tuesday's bulletin, that the board had to back Ange. And last night's performance shows you how we can maximise the performance of individuals. But we seem to have identified the right back as a priority position, JP, and understand why, because we've already said behind Tony Ralston, you've got Urhoghide, Welsh and O'Connor. So you definitely needed a right back, and it looks as though we're going to be tying up a deal very soon for a new right back. Have we prioritised the wrong side? Because last night, and again, I'm keen not to put a negative spin on it, but I do think that when we play better opposition, JP, Greg Taylor sometimes is shown to be wanting, and he lacks that wee bit of quality.
Yeah, he didn't have the best first half, and I think if it had been up to Sean behind me, he would have been hooked at half time, as that's what he said to me. But I wasn't expecting him to be hooked. I don't think that's really Postecoglou's style, because it would show an awful lack of faith really in the player if he'd hooked him at half time. I thought he played better in the second half, but the first half wasn't his best 45 minutes. He made a lot of, I think there was that point where he tried to sort of cushion a header that was, it was right on the edge of the box, and he tried to cushion a header to somebody, and it was never the right option to do. Mm-hmm. And then he was screaming at somebody for, not picking it up. But he just looked a little bit disjointed. But I mean, there's no question we need a left back as well, because I mean, are we actually supposed to believe that Bolly Bolingoli has a future at Celtic in any shape or form? Because I don't know what sort of reception he's going to get. When he comes onto a full house at Celtic Park, is he going to be welcome back? I mean, he isn't by me. I'm not going to boo. I mean, I'm not a pantomime, but I'm not going to boo the guy. But I certainly, it doesn't leave a very good taste in my mouth that he's still about the club because of what he did. I think it's absolutely shocking what he did. And have we had a real apology from him? I can't remember. I'd need to go back and dig out the media articles at the time to see if he actually came out and said, look, I'm really sorry, I should never have done this. I've let my teammates down. I mean, even as I'm saying that, I can't recall that having been said by him. I mean, somebody can easily bring it up and fire it at me in the comments if it's there. But so there you go. That immediately you're a left back down there. And then so, it's exactly the same as the other side. I think we're in just as much need in the left-hand side for reinforcements as we are on the right. Because as Postecoglou said last night, we're asking these guys to go to the well. He's asking them to play a really, really high-tempo, intense game. And, that's not going to work like Thursday, Sunday. It's and all the cup games and stuff that we're involved in as well. You need to have a bigger pool to choose from, and I'd say right and left back are as important as each other.
We've had a couple of the contributors, Declan, over the piece, over the entire season, really, last year, singing the praises of Taylor, rather, and sticking up for Taylor. It wasn't his best performance last night. You're looking at the fact that he's now, in terms of Celtic appearances, the most experienced of the back five, because he's got 57 games under his belt, 13 assists. That's something that people do point to the fact that he has set up quite a few. When you look at throughout the rest of the team, the only players that come anywhere near that last night would be McGregor and Forrest. What do we do with Greg Taylor? Because I think we're in a position where, it could well be one of these situations where we can't get rid of or offloads Ball and Golly. And until we do that, because I'm guessing he's on decent enough wages, we won't replace a left-back spot. And, you look at the quality of opposition last night, best team we've played this season. A lot of people saying that they weren't that great. They're definitely the best team we've played this season. If we get through, we're going to play better. And that's where the real test lies for, I think, a player like Taylor. Because, I think domestically, he can look good. He can look assured. But if we want to progress, and even against Rangers in a couple of weeks, Declan, I think he will be a player that may be targeted by Rangers.
Yeah, he probably will. I thought last night was one of his poorest games in a Celtic jersey. And again, I think there's probably complacency that's maybe slipped into his game, because at this point, it's his jersey to lose. As we all know, even though Ball and Golly might still be there, it's likely not to feature for Celtic. So at this point in time, Greg Taylor, can have a stinker, but probably know that he'll be picked the next week. So in terms of, your squad depth and bringing in another left back, if somebody comes in, it's only, I would hope, make him a better player. Like I seen when Paddy Roberts came in to put a rocket up James Forrest backside, because if you think you're a stick on for that position, you become complacent. You know that you're not going to be dropped. And, Postecoglou, that comment, JP, that you brought up, going to the well, if we are going to play with that intensity, you're going to need a big squad to do it. And at this point in time, although we might not be able to offload Ball and Golly, it's very unlikely that it actually feature for us. So there, you're just saying Greg Taylor, and that's it. And probably next, you'd then be looking at young Montgomery to come in and play there, who came on as like a winger last night. So in terms of the depth of the squad, I think we definitely need to prioritise that. I thought at times Taylor's final ball last night was very poor. Again, he's trying to play a system that he's maybe not suited to, and that's, again, with the inverted fullbacks, Ralston seems to have adapted to it. I was getting forward down the channel last night, something I've not seen too much, but I definitely think it's a position that we need to prioritise, because it's obviously important in the makeup of the 4-3-3 that Postecoglou wants to play.
Talking about priority positions, we've spoken a lot as well about the centre-half position, JP, and last night we seen Stephen Welsh, I thought, having another excellent game at the back. Starfelt was ropey, I think, for 25 minutes, but I actually think he played his way through that. And, I'm hoping that with more games, he can come to the fore as well. I don't think we've seen the true player in Carl Starfelt yet. From everything we had heard for him coming in, it could just be a period of adapting, not only to, the country and Scottish football, but to Angie's style, which perhaps he is not accustomed to as well. How did you feel the two centre-halves performed last night, JP? And there's talk that Liam Scales is on his way from Shamrock Rovers. Again, I'm of the view that he's not a first-team starter for Celtic. Not at this stage.
Well, he seems to probably kind of file alongside Shaw and Urhoghide as these players that may make an impact at some point in this season. But, I mean, if you want to look at the cold facts, they kept a clean sheet, albeit thanks to their keeper. But they rode their luck at times, there's no doubt about that. But, I mean, they kept a clean sheet against a good Dutch side who finished third in the Dutch league last night. And I think most people would have probably thought after Midtjylland, if we'd have played Alkmaar instead of Jablonec, they would have probably, done a number on us. The fact that we've had Jablonec as a tie in between those two to give them more experience of playing together in a pretty intense game and atmosphere. Obviously, the fans being back in the stadium, which has got its plus points and its negative points as well. So I think, they've come through that last night, and he did make a couple of mistakes, and that's probably going to happen the way that we play. And I was listening to the Celts Down Under podcast, and one of the guys there was saying, Ruben Kazan are probably not a side that are going to have as much of the ball as Celtic and be as on the front foot as Celtic. So you've got to take that into consideration as well of letting him adjust. You know, I think there's people are far too quick to judge players nowadays when they're only 5 minutes in the door, and it's just like, oh, if they have a bad game, all right, they're done. We need somebody else. And you know, we've seen far too many examples of that in Celtic's history, recent and past, where players have needed a bit of time to bed in, and you know, maybe even an entire season. I'm not saying that we should accept, you know, half-hearted performances or mistakes all this season, but I think a little bit of time to bed in. But I thought Welsh was excellent last night, and you know, I fully get why people were saying he was a potential man of the match. But just back at ball and goalie as well. Ball and goalie isn't that good. I mean, I mean, in that game against Rangers, he had the heart of a chihuahua on that left side, and I just I kind of actually, I was off whatever vehicle was applicable to ball and goalie. It certainly wasn't a bus. It was probably a rickshaw or something like that. Yeah, I just didn't see it from him. I didn't see that appetite and desire. However, flip it, hiya Russell. You could say that Postecoglou could get a tune out of him, because look what he's getting out of Anthony Ralston. It's whether or not you know, the support take him back almost. So I mean, I don't know. It's a very strange one, and it's indicative of our weird signing policy in recent years, how we've ended up with this guy on our books, and yeah.
And how to get him off the books is the problem, though, JP, because you get a player there who's on a decent wage, and he's thinking to himself, "Why would I leave?" You know, if a club's not willing to pay the transfer fee that Celtic are looking for, and he's quite happy to pick up his wages, you're in a scenario where, you know, unless you do what happened with Cham, and it's unlikely you're going to do that until you're in the last year of a player's contract, because it's going to cost the club a lot of money to pay them out of the deal, then he's just going to sit there. And that's frustrating as anything, because it is a legacy issue, you know, bringing these players in. Regardless of what he did last season off the pitch, JP, you've got to question whether or not he was good enough in the first place. I think that's a good point.
Well, that's why Ralston's still here, because nobody could match Ralston's wages. So that's why Ralston's still here. So we're almost benefiting from that contract, and now we're getting performances out of a guy. But yeah, ball and goalie is a different kettle of fish.
And how often could that possibly happen? I mean, he's getting those performances not just out of Tony Ralston, he's getting them out of Ryan Christie, he's getting them out of Tommy Rogic. I was going to say Rogic, and you say Rogic, and it was a strange hybrid. I said a strange hybrid there. I would also say, to a degree, you've already mentioned him, he's getting better performances out of Edouard, and I would also suggest Callum McGregor's performing better under Ange Postecoglou. What's your thoughts on that, Dick?
Yeah, I've described McGregor as a metronome in that midfield, because it just kind of goes tick, 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 and everything goes round him. And again, he's adapted his game a wee bit, because in that shape, we always kind of thought McGregor was like a number 8, but when he's playing with Turnbull and Rogic in that midfield, he seems to be the 6. And then again, he's dropping back, he's looking for those passes off the two centre halves, which obviously takes a bit of the heat off them. And when you've got good midfielders in front of you like Turnbull and Tom Rogic, then it's very easy just to, you know, give the ball to them and let them do their thing. But McGregor will go with the ball and play it out. I definitely think, though, you know, the manager, as I touched on earlier, his man management skills must be impeccable, because he's certainly give a lot of guys a lift, and it's a lot of guys that last season, again, what I touched on earlier, were probably in a really low place, that, you know, that there wasn't great energy in that dressing room, I don't think, and you could see that just by their faces and by some of their performances. But again, on Bolly, just to touch on what you two guys were saying there, shape-wise, I think he probably works better in that kind of wing-back position rather than a flat-back forward balling goalie, because he's just too erratic going forward for me. I just think he's a bad defender. Decent enough going forward. 2-0 game at Ibrox, he played really, really well, I suppose, in the back four, but I just can't see him coming into the team just due to what's happened there. But you never know. Ange's working miracles. He probably could work one on him, but I would definitely say the manager, through his man management skills and just through what he's doing at the club, has improved the whole first team and players individually, and they're playing as a collective, but they're also playing as individuals.
There's loads of comments coming through. He's a divisive character, is Bolingoli, for obvious reasons. So let's have a wee look and dip into some of the comments. Willie on YouTube. Didn't Bolingoli play well at Ibrox in a 2-0 game? I think you just mentioned that, Dick. Roddy McDonald, yeah, you're absolutely right, Roddy. Contracts cut both ways. Of course they do. I mean, you know, this is the thing. Our priority is always Celtic when we're talking about these scenarios, but the player is looking after the player, you know. And what was the comment that the big man, Big Bobo Baldi, said about I'm the chief executive of Bobo Baldi? Yeah. It's true, you know, and it's not a modern football thing. It is true that they're looking after themselves, and that's fine. But obviously, we look at it from a Celtic perspective rather than from the player's perspective. John Aaron comes in to say that on the note of Bolingoli, we need to play him if he's in the squad. He is better than Taylor. I'm not sure how many people would agree or disagree. And then a Northern Pros who is twitching it today. Is that a flare? Is that a green flare outside a set of garages with a no ball game sign? And is he watching us on that TV? That's what I want to know. Postecoglou has done well, but Jimi Hendrix couldn't get a tune from Bolingoli. Well, bit harsh, or do you think that's fair enough, JP?
I mean, I don't know. I would never have thought I would have seen a performance from Anthony Ralston like that against that level of opposition last night. So I don't know. I from a personal point of view, I'm not comfortable with him being at Celtic after what he did. You know, and like I said, I've not heard any apologies or sort of just any sort of trying to ingratiate himself with the sport in any way. Like, was there maybe something on Instagram, like a pathetic thing on like an Instagram story, just going, sorry or something? Maybe I'm making that up. I don't know, but something, would be. But it's obviously way too late. You know what I mean? Like it should have happened at the time. I don't think anybody was in the mood for it at the time, perhaps. But it just seems a bit of a brass neck to still be there. You know what I mean? I'd have been like, I need to get out of here. Just get me a move anywhere. But. Yeah.
They must have brass necks. You're absolutely right. And if I was anywhere near at that level of profile, I wouldn't be anywhere near social media either, JP, because that must be hellish for them when you look at the kind of stick that they get. Now, Patrick Fitzpatrick comes in. What's the story with Leo Held? It's a good point, actually, because it looks as though he's on his way to Leeds United. It feels as though we're just waiting on him being announced at Leeds United, which... It's quite unfortunate, Dick, because he seemed to be one of these rising stars from the academy. 17 years of age, played a few games for Ross County. Next thing you know, John Hughes is comparing him to Virgil van Dijk. But to go from the top tier of Scottish football to tier 5 and play for the Colts was a wee bit of a slap in the face, I think maybe Leo Held would have felt. And his future seems to be elsewhere.
Yeah, that was something I touched on whether Celtic players... Some of the kind of, you would call the high-profile stars, like maybe a Luca Coro, who did well with Queen's Park, would want to make that drop down when he's, he can prove that he's playing at a decent standard, at a level above that. But I think it's just a shame that we've probably missed a group of players here that pathway wasn't shown into the first team and what you could do, because from within the club they took their eyes off the ball and just looked at the 11 players on the park going for this holy grail, and that was it. And the mess it left us in, that we're still slowly picking ourselves up from, is evident to see, and that's probably part of that issue and why we've got young players wanting to check out the club, because he's not the only one. We've seen a whole list of players, because there's that clear pathway and the first team isn't there. But again, it's down to the manager being able to give players that chance, and a guy who I probably think will get that chance this season is Owen Moffat, who was it 5 goals he scored the other week, and it looks to be turning it up down there, and supposedly the big boy Lavelle at the back is also looks a bit of a player. So yeah, maybe that level of football isn't great, but I think if it is proven that if you go down and play in that lowland league and do well, that the manager will give you an opportunity. It might be worth sticking around for a couple of the academy boys.
Yeah, you would hope so. There's some players, like you say, who have played at a higher level. I mean, Leo Connor was playing for the Colts, and obviously he's played for the Republic of Ireland. He's a cap, full cap, as well as playing over 40 games for Tranmere Rovers. So yes, you can see the pros and the cons, but I think the positives certainly outweigh the negatives when you consider that JP, they wouldn't be playing competitive football otherwise, so I think it's the only way we can get competitive games in their legs. John Caldwell, I'm bringing this one up because John reckons that Scales will be straight in at left back. I made a few kind of comments on the transfer of Scales because I do view it, JP, like you say, like the two Sheffield Wednesday boys coming in. I wouldn't see them coming straight into the team. They're going to have to play their way into the team, hopefully get a few games under their belt throughout the season. And I put Scales in the same category as that. But I have had contact from quite a few people over in Ireland tell me that I'm wrong. And he is good enough for Celtic's first team. So that's going to be an interesting development once he comes in, because it looks like a done deal on Liam Scales. And as I keep saying on here, I'd love to be wrong. I mean, if I make a prediction and it's right and it's for the worst for Celtic, then I'm not going to be happy with that. I'd much rather he comes in, makes an impact and improves our team. That's exactly what we want. David Turnbull, JP, what was your thoughts on David Turnbull's performance last night? Just a few short weeks ago, he was being criticised.
Yeah, he was. He was really good last night. A lot deeper, obviously, and just sort of, I think he can view the game a lot easier from that position, and the work that he does to allow Rogic that freedom, that is why Rogic is playing well. I think because of David Turnbull, and obviously Callum McGregor as well. But I think particularly David Turnbull is allowing, like, the way that Rogic brought that ball down, on the edge of the box. I mean, that was just, as soon as he did that, I was like, something's going to happen here. And then he motored round the side, crossed it in, and what a finish from Furuhashi. Do you know what I mean? It's seeing Tom Rogic do that it's like watching, a rerun of somebody that you once knew, and then people are saying he's like turning back the clock and
on all their glory. Is this the best run of form? Now, what I mean by that, and I'm not getting carried away, Tony Haggerty made a brilliant point a few weeks ago saying that there are certain players who their showreel is emphatic. They're always scoring tremendous goals, etc. However, in terms of their consistency, it would be difficult to pinpoint full games where they were brilliant. Is this Tom Rogic, or is he entering into the realms of having his best form at Celtic, over a half dozen games or so, JP?
Yeah, I think so. I think this could be his kind of Prosinecki moment, just although he's got, I mean, Prosinecki was still performing at 35 or whatever, because he did the business against us for Croatia Zagreb, if you remember.
Yeah.
But I think Tom Rogic, he's still got, a good few years on Prosinecki at that stage, and it just feels like, it does feel, I mean, folk have said that it's a bit cliched, but it does feel like a new signing, because we've not seen this from Tom Rogic for about two and a bit years. He's just been, collecting a lot of money every week for very little return, and it's been frustrating for fans because everybody knows what he can do, and then you see that last night, and but I mean, I've not been on since last Thursday. Turnbull scored twice last Thursday, and what a finish for I think it was the second one, outside of the foot. I mean, he tries some things sometimes that are a bit showboaty, like he tried an outside of the foot pass last night that he made an absolute mess of. But one you can let him away with one, he'll do it again, and he'll pull off the pass, and he's got that in his locker. I sometimes found it a bit strange seeing he had his sort of back to play quite a lot, but he obviously needs to have that, just to sort of receive the ball and recycle possession and then look to make the pass. And he's definitely proven an integral part of that midfield and undroppable. And just on that comment about Scales coming in at left back, I don't think Postecoglou is the type of person that's going to, especially given the way that these players have responded to him in these last few weeks, there's no way he's just going to bomb somebody out the side and put somebody else in, without any basis of form or training or merit.
Like what he's done with James McCarthy, because you'd have probably thought senior pro thrown right in, but he's sticking with what he's got.
Of course, yeah. I mean, McCarthy will need to wait his chance, and he's by no means a starter for Celtic. Do you know what I mean? It's you've got to show faith, and I think that's what he's doing, and probably why he's getting the buy-in that he is from the players.
Listen, a lot of these people in the comment section, JP, have seen more of Liam Scales than I, and they are coming in to tell me I'm wrong. David Boyle says Scales has been fantastic in the Europa League qualifiers. We've also got Chisholm coming in on YouTube. Scales is a player. He is first team ready. And Stephen Kelly comes in to confirm that Scales will play every week, much better than Taylor. See him play. Well, listen, I'm looking forward to that if he's going to come over and walk straight into the team, because, like you say, JP, you want to try and keep everything ticking along. You don't want to start tearing it up when we haven't fully fulfilled what it is we're aiming for. And I don't think that anybody's going to walk in, other than maybe somebody like Joe Hart. We had to put the goalkeeper in because we were desperate to get the goalie. So David Turnbull then, Declan, when you're looking at the way he finished last season, and he picked up a lot of personal accolades for his performances, it looked as though at the beginning of this season that those performances, the standard wasn't quite where it was last season, but he's certainly regained it. He's always good for a goal. His assists are off the scale. And somehow has managed to find a way to play him and Tommy Rogic in the same side.
Yeah, I think Dundee probably is when the screws started to turn a bit when he changed his position. Obviously, last season, a lot of the time, playing that 4-2-3-1, he was in as a number 10, just in behind the striker. That's where he kind of started the season for us, but he seems to have adapted well to the number 8. And again, it's just players kind of getting used to the system and how it works, but just shows you the quality of 3 players in there that 2 can change their position and just be fine. McGregor kind of dropping into that deeper role as the holding midfielder and the pivot, and then Turnbull playing as the 8. But cracking goals last week. He's still getting forward as the number 8. He's still getting in about it. And again, his work off the ball last night, as I mentioned at the top of the show, was terrific. His pressing of the game was terrific. So we've got a good quality player in that. It doesn't look as if we'll do the Ryan Christie, fall off a cliff like Ryan did last season after having a great season when we won the 9. So Turnbull, for me, is a quality football player, and he's only going to grow as well. I mean, I think something that we forget is, like Ralston, Welsh, Turnbull, they're still quite young. Like, they're no old players. These are still people that there's still more to come. And again, by Tom Rogic, like you're talking about, he's only 28, I think, going in 29 this December. So in terms of where he's entering just now, if we can keep this up, we'll have a good player. And he shows his quality last night for the goal he sets up with Kyogo. So yeah, the manager is working wonders, and I think that is complete testament to him. We've got a manager and a coach rolled in to win, which I'm sure the Celtic board are like that at this point too, because I think they've won a watch for this one.
Yeah, it looks as though they have. And Kenny67 comes in, Prozinecki, what player he was, JP. Amazing skill, smoked 10, 15, maybe 60 cigarettes a day, I think. Tom Rogic's on a pipe. He's just smoking a pipe, walking about with his slippers on. I mean, that's what he's got, that look about him. How long can he keep this up though, JP? How far can he take this? Because in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, hopefully it's not a flash in the pan for Tommy Rogic.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, he obviously has a relationship with Postecoglou. How close that is, we don't know. Just because he played for him in the national team doesn't mean they're best pals. But it's no surprise to see that a compatriot coming in gets the best out of him, or is getting the best out of him. I think the whole thing at the moment is maybe we should maybe not get too carried away. I mean, there's some quite outrageous comments and statements coming out on Twitter from various people about Postecoglou and Furuhashi and everything else. And I remember, I don't want to go back to John Barnes, but I will. John Barnes started the season absolutely flying. I think it's a completely different kettle of fish. Don't get me wrong. I think Postecoglou's the track record before coming here is light years ahead of what John Barnes's was, because John Barnes hadn't managed anybody. But yeah, I do remember that. We tonked Aberdeen 5-0 away at Pittodrie. We were, hammering teams, and we beat Cumbrian Town 6-0. I know that's not that great, but we put away some amount of goals, and we have put away some amount of goals recently. But I think with Furuhashi, I think there's no question at all that guy is something special. And the reception as he went off last night, been a good while since you've heard something like that. Maybe Moussa Dembele was the last player I heard get a reception like that going off the park.
What I would ask, I'm going to go back to your Barnes point, but what I would ask first of all, who was the last player, individual? Which individual was the last player at Celtic to make such an immediate impact as Furuhashi? I mean, he's come in and obviously he made his debut against Hearts. It was going to be difficult for him to pull that back, but since then, absolutely astonishing. He scored 6 goals in 5 starts, 6 goals in 6 appearances. And I mean, who was the last player to make such an impact in a Celtic jersey?
I would say Dembele. That hat-trick against you in September 2016, I would say so. And he scored that penalty against Astana too.
Yeah.
Because if you remember when he came in at first again, he wasn't, but that penalty against Astana seemed to kind of take it off, and then it went from there. So I would say Moussa.
What age was he then, Declan? 19, 20?
19, I think. Yeah.
Scary.
19.
Frightening, when you look back. Absolutely frightening. Now, a couple of good points coming in. There's a lot of love for Liam Scales in these comments. Raymond Haddon, you can watch him tonight as the Rovers game is live on RTE at 5 o'clock. And also, whose news? Scales is left-footed, can also play midfield, fairly decent on the ball and loves a challenge, good in the air. It could well be that we've got a wee gem on our hands here, JP, and I've written him off. I've not written him off, but you know what I mean. Too soon.
Just want him to. If he has first team ready, then great. We don't want somebody coming in that's going to kick a few balls and then go out on loan somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like we've seen that happen so many times. We bring these guys in.
I think the issue for a lot of Celtic fans, and again it goes back to what we said weeks ago, is the Dermot Desmond factor in this deal. I think a lot of people just right away thought this is just a wee deal between two clubs that Dermot has an interest in, and he's just doing it for the sake of it. But it might prove out that, it might turn out to be that Liam Scales is a good football player, and we've done our due diligence on him, and we're signing a good quality left back that we need.
It brings me back to that story that Paddy McCourt tells, Declan, whereby he signs for Celtic, he turns up for training, and Gordon Strachan doesn't know who he is because it was a Dermot Desmond signing. Someone picked up on this as well on Twitter during the week and said, he was actually identified by Damien Duff. Damien Duff made the recommendation to Celtic. So, if he comes in and he's an absolute gem, brilliant, because that's what we're all about. Maravchik comes in as well. Welcome back to the show, Maravchik. You're commenting on YouTube. Tommy Rogic rejected the Olympics and a family holiday when Ange was appointed. He lost £16. He does look like he's lost a bit of timber, and did double sessions during the Euros. He knew what was coming. He's obviously worked with Ange during their time with the Australian national team, JP. But I'm going to go back to your point about John Barnes. Now, I do also recall during that early flurry that we beat Aberdeen 7-0 at Celtic Park. You remember that game?
Yeah, that's the first time they played the Magnificent Seven for Henrik Larsson.
Yeah, so you've got Larsson, Maravchik, Berkovic, Viduka. They're all firing on all cylinders, and you're looking at that team at that point. I remember looking and thinking this could get very, very interesting. I think the one element that Barnes didn't have, as well as obviously the pedigree in terms of a coach that you mentioned, JP, he didn't have the man management. Because, I mean, having spoken to a couple of the guys that played underneath John Barnes, that was quite evident. He didn't have that man management, whereby it was very much an us and them. So there was an incident that we were being told about when they were on the winter break, and he followed a group of guys out because he didn't believe that they were just going to go for some light lunch. I thought they were going to go out for a bevy. And these players were senior pros, some of them, JP, and he didn't trust that because they said they weren't going to go for a drink, that they could be left to their own devices. He followed them, he's walked into the cafe, and he's actually gone as far as picking up Tommy Johnson's glass of lemonade and taking a drink out of it to make sure there wasn't gin or vodka or whatever in the juice. So I think what we've been hearing is that Ange can really tap into players and get them believing in his philosophy and his style, whereas it was the complete opposite with John Barnes. And although he had some talented footballers and interesting views on how to play the game, you know, there was no real fibre to that really in the end. I think what we're getting from Postecoglou is the best of both worlds. Now, we're talking about young players, Declan, and we quite rightly pointed out some of these guys are young players. I mean, Welsh is 21, Ralston's only 22. Leo Abada came back into the side last night, 19 years of age. I think he probably suffered from the fact that he's missed a few games because he seemed to start off pretty brightly, but it was the right substitution when he was taken off. I'm looking forward to him coming back into the side, but when he plays, Forrest plays out left, and I made the point last night, he's less effective out there, I feel, Jamesy Forrest. But because of the impact of Abada, do you think it's worth playing Forrest out left? I know that Christie's coming back, and he was firing on all cylinders before he got injured.
I don't know about Forrest on the left-hand side. A few times last night he was able to switch the wingers, and obviously that's just, natural. You can do that. But, Ryan Christie against Dundee on that left-hand side was sensational, and I just think if he comes back and he just looks far more comfortable there than what James Forrest does. And, James Forrest takes his goal to the well last night, and it was a big deflection and whatever. And the Forrest haters will get me for that. But on that right-hand side, Abada coming in, as I said earlier on, Paddy Roberts can only do James Forrest a world of good, because, again, he won't feel as if that right-hand side is a stick-on for him. And obviously it's Abada's position at this moment in time. So I don't really know about it. I like Kyogo central. I know the manager's played him at times, like in the Hearts game, played on the left-hand side with Eddie up front. But it's good that we're having these discussions now, but the manager's got a problem of, attacking players that he can play up front and we're not short. But to me, at this point in time, from what I've watched so far, Celtic this season, the front three I'd probably go with is Abada on the right-hand side, Christie on the left-hand side, and Kyogo up front.
It's a good headache to have. No, Eddie.
No.
So mental.
It's a good headache to have, JP. What's your thoughts on it? I did mention last night, I just think that Forrest is more effective on the right, although he has performed well on the left from time to time. He gets his goal, I think, shortly after getting moved back to the right. He gets his goal. His goals and assists now are sitting at 96 and 96, which is just unbelievable. Again, it underlines how much we missed him last. There's so many reasons why last season went the way it did, but one of them was definitely we missed Forrest. I mean, he loves a goal in Europe as well, JP.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, absolutely. It's good to see him coming back in and injecting what we've missed. That pace, and he nearly scored an absolute worldie last night. You remember that where he chopped on his right?
That would have been a peach.
I've not seen it back, but I mean, I don't know if that was a save for the cameras or if the guy was actually at full strength and struggling. I mean, did you get a better view of it when where you were?
That was in the first half, so it was down the other end. So you're probably closer to me, mate, because obviously I'm at that corner.
I mean, from our angle,
yeah. I mean, it looked as if it was going right into the net. I don't know if it was just quite a comfortable save from the goal the way he's went up for it, but if it went in, it'd have been an absolute peach.
Aye, I mean, you make your own luck, and I know he got a deflection, obviously, for the goal, but I mean, you're going to take it. With regards to Abada, I think when he signed, we had a conversation about him signing on this bulletin, and I said, I want in a year's time Abada to have contributed, because we were all like, who is this guy? He's 19, probably another Dudu Dahan, brown bag effort. And so you just didn't know what to make of that signing and whether he was going to contribute. But he's come in and gets put back in the team last night, and the trust that has been shown in him to start that game last night, that was a big deal. Like, that's not, you can't really sniff at that. So it's obviously proven to be a good bit of business, and he obviously is lightning quick, and he's now part of what is one of my favourite ever songs that has been composed by a section of the fans. I think it's the boys that sit up the top of the corner of the Jockstein and North Stand came up with, well, I thought it was Sailor Glass of Champagne because that's the original, but I found out this morning that it's actually Scooter song. So Scooter have sampled Glass of Champagne, and then that's where these guys have got the because I did wonder, I was like, how the hell do they know about Glass of Champagne by Sailor? Because that's like a one-hit wonder for 1976. But they've concocted a tremendous little ditty, shall we say, for Kyogo, Furuhashi, and Abada, and also Ange Postecoglou as well. So hopefully that catches on. It was getting a bit of an airing last night, but I really can't wait till the full stadium gives it yeehaw for it. So
absolutely. And the final question, I guess, then is: have we heard the last of a wannabe Edouard, JP?
Hope not. I really hope not, because I mean, time's ticking now, isn't it? We've only got what 11 days left of August, so there's only a couple more games to go. Well, 3 probably between now and then. And he's got a home to St Mirren on Saturday, away to Alkmaar, and then some team in Govan. So those 3 games.
Ibrox, don't be no nice to the people. Good people are Govan. There's a lot of good sons in Govan. Ibrox.
Edmiston Drive or whatever it is. Yeah. So he's got those 3 games, and we've only got one opportunity left to potentially hear that on Saturday. I really, really hope that is not the case. Time will tell. We could be sitting here in a couple of weeks, talking about Eddie's departure and how good he was and everything else, and it would be really, really sad to see him go at this stage. I said last night. I just said, if I know football's, money's a big deal in football, but why would you want to leave something as enjoyable as this seems to be? As a fan sitting watching this, you're sort of on the edge of your seat and you're going, nuts for it. But imagine actually getting to play in that, like play with those players who are playing at the top of their game. And I don't know. It's not for us to say, because we're in a different profession, and we're just sitting talking on a screen. But I don't know. Just from the outside looking in, I would be like, no, sign me up. And if a move comes around, there'll be something better for him than Brighton or Crystal Palace. Like look at his compatriot Dembele went to Lyon for 20 million, and I know he's had a bit of a mixed run of results there, but he's played in the Champions League with Lyon, got a loan move to Atletico Madrid. That's added another bit of experience to his CV, and Dembele's going to do all right in his career, and I think Edouard will as well. Whether or not it's the right time to jump ship, I don't know.
I know, he done all right, won the league in Spain. Now, whatever happens, we will be covering it on A Celtic State of Mind. Make sure that you get subscribing to the channel, follow us on social media, and we're on here every day at 12:30, and we cover every single game. All that's left for me to say is thanks everybody for your comments on the social media channels and via YouTube, and thank you to Declan McConville and JP Mason for joining me once again on A Celtic State of Mind.